this one for me, and it just like you guys, I thought of a variety of different ones, but I like how we all kind of are going with a different one. Case, you went with a Stanley Cup prediction. Chad, you went with a team to miss the playoffs. I'm going to go with a bold prediction for a contract extension, and this is about a defenseman with the Arizona Coyotes. It's not Jacob Chychrun, who's going to get dealt here eventually, but it's Shayne Gostisbehere. I think that Ghost will sign a contract extension with the Arizona Coyotes. That's my bold prediction. It's been a great place for him. They got him for next to nothing from the Philadelphia Flyers. He comes in, he's their number one guy. He's been an absolute revelation on that blue line. 51 points last season. He's got 26 and 35. He's having another great year. This team is better than unexpected. And I think sooner rather than later, this team is going to have to pay their guys, and they're going to be in the playoffs sooner than expected. They've been a lot better than any of us thought. Undefeated against the Leafs in 2022, by the way, Chad.
I know. Dude, and they mop the floor with the Avs every time they play them, too. It's hilarious. I don't get it.
Yeah, exactly. So I just think that this makes a lot of sense. The way that Chychrun is playing right now, I think that the price that they're looking for is kind of justified because he's been a point per game since he returned from injury. He's getting traded, no question. I just don't think it makes sense to trade him and Gostisbehere.
Sorry, I'm just plugging my ears with the Chychrun trade talk. I know. So sick of
violating
that shit.
the contract.
I know.
Oh my god.
But anyway, but with Ghost, and there's been a lot of talk about trading him as well. Like, just why not getting assets and picks and everything and continuing that? But you have to keep guys that have been good for you, and you have to have guys that are going to be a part of that core. And Arizona's been a really good place for this guy, and it's been a lot of fun to watch. He's back to the old Shayne Gostisbehere that he was those first couple of years in Philadelphia. So kind of rambled on a bit there, but that's my kind of sort of, like, I don't think it's a totally bold prediction, but I just think that there's been way more people out there talking about this guy just getting sold off for assets at the deadline by the Coyotes. I really don't think so. He's been great for them. They love him. Chychrun's going out the door. I think Ghost resigns in the desert. What do you guys think?
I think it's likely, but I'm going to put a little twist on it. I don't think he signs an extension. I think that he re-signs after testing the market a little bit in free agency. Because I think he's kind of realizing I've got a lot of worth here. Not everyone wants to stay in Arizona with their record and with how they're projected to be for the next 5 years. But I think that he sees himself having more value than the league sees him having, and I think that Arizona is going to give him the best offer because they have the money and because they've seen what he can do for them. So inevitably, he will end up with the Arizona Coyotes.
Yeah,
as a re-sign.
Yeah,
I get it, Harp. Like, he has been lights out for them. I at sometimes start to think that maybe it's a case of like a Thomas Chabot where a lot of his production comes because he was the guy. Like in Ottawa, who else is going to score on the back end for the last 5 years? Like, it's Thomas Chabot. He plays 26 minutes a night. Of course he's going to get a lot of points. So sometimes I get caught up thinking maybe that's the Shayne Gostisbehere effect as well. He is the guy on the back end. He is playing a lot and he is getting, he's getting points because of that. But I don't know. I do think that he still has a lot of value. I think he had a couple off seasons in Philadelphia, but he's a very good player and a very good defenseman. So Arizona would be lucky to have him for the next couple of years.
Yeah, I mean, Casey, to your point about the Shayne Gostisbehere effect or the Thomas Chabot effect, playing a lot of minutes and getting a lot of points, my question is, do you think he's a 60-point guy? Like, currently he's on pace for 60 points. Do you think he's a 60-point guy right now, this Shayne Gostisbehere, anywhere else in the league, on any other team? Because I personally don't, despite the fact that I like the player, Like, I just...
Yeah, no, I'd agree.
Yeah.
I mean, he's still like, I could see him in the 45 point or 40 point region, but I think Arizona, he's getting a lot of points because he's the guy there right now.
Yeah, and the reason I brought that up is because at the start of the year in fantasy, in my other league, I traded him 1-for-1 for Morgan Riley. Okay, and I mentioned this on the podcast, and the guys were pretty upset about it. But at the time, Ghost, because Chikrin was out, Ghost was playing first pairing at 5-on-5. He was playing first power play, first penalty kill. He was playing all situations about 25 minutes a night, and he was getting secondary assists here and there. It seemed like anytime Arizona scored, he was involved. So he was valuable. Now that Chikrin is back, I think he's slowed down a little bit and tailed off, and he kind of, he was able to compile a lot of points at the start of the year. But I'd like to look at his last 15 games or whatever since Chikrin's been back, because I'm sure the production isn't quite the same. All of that being said, he's definitely better now than he was in his last year in Philadelphia, no question. And I could see him signing an extension. And with that being said, I'm going to say something that might sound a little crazy, but this is a bold predictions episode. Not that this is a prediction, but this might be a bold statement. Arizona, I don't think is that bad anymore. Is that crazy to say? Like, I know that
they're not.
I know they're going to be in the basement of the league, but I don't think they're going to be a lottery team starting next year. Like, they kind of already have the pieces there. So if they keep Ghost, why not keep Chikrin? It's a different conversation, because who knows if Chikrin would want to re-sign because of all the trade talks and all of the the boatloads of assets you could get. But I personally don't think Arizona is that bad anymore. They're kind of set up moving forward.
I think you've been watching a lot of Arizona Toronto games, and that's curving your opinion, because they're a Stanley Cup contender when they play Toronto, which I lost money on when they lost 6-3 to Arizona.
Yeah.
Shayne Gostisbehere, last 10 games, 3 goals, 3 assists, +4.
Okay.
So I think he is continuing that pace regardless of who's playing ahead
Fair
of him. My question, well, I'll say that I think Arizona is a little further behind than you guys. I think the next 2 years are still going to be tough, but they do have the right pieces moving forward, and it'll be interesting to follow. But Harp, what do you see as number? Give me a dollar value.
I wanted to ask that too.
Year. Term and dollar value.
Okay, right now, let's go with like a 4-year deal, because we're seeing a lot of those that, like, cases you've mentioned before, 4 years has kind of turned into the new 2 years. That seems to be a good term for him, and he's not even 30 yet, so that's not... That's a good term number, I think. And I will go with, he's making $4.5 million right now, I believe. So let's go like 6.5 times 4 for Gostisbehere to re-sign.
I would give him 6.5 if it was for 2 years. But I like the 4-year contracts as well. But I think that 6.5 is high at 4. He's got a history of, taking a year or two off. So I think that a lot of teams are going to take that into mind, and they'd be willing to spend a lot on him now. Now I don't know if they can front load a contract. Maybe that's what they would end up doing if they do 4 years at 6.5, make it a lot next year and the year after, and then it starts to trail off.
Easily tradable if that's the case too.
Yeah, exactly. That's how I could see that deal working for Ghost. So I don't think that's completely ridiculous. It's $2 million more. For a guy who's on pace for 60 points.
Personally, on a 4-year deal, I would give him like 5.5. I think. I don't think I'd go over 6. 5.5 seems reasonable. That's
closer to where I am at 4 years, but I think a 2-year would be 6.5 wouldn't be ridiculous, especially with the cap space and the cap situation in Arizona.
Yeah, and the cap is just going up in these next few years. So, I mean, fingers crossed, of course, but next year I think it's only projected to go up $1 million again, but then, after that, once all the escrow and whatnot is figured out, then hopefully it goes up way more, and that's what it's projected to. So, yeah, could definitely see it.
Yeah. And, another thing that we could see, and we've seen this before, is that Arizona could still trade him at the deadline to a contender where he's just strictly a rental and then re-sign him in the summer. We could see that as well. So that is certainly another option. But then I think for the player personally, like the way I would look at it is this team has the pieces in place. They've been better than expected. I think they could be a playoff team as soon as next year. Chad, you've heard me say that, so that might be a little bit bold as well, but they've been a lot better than expected, and I think that for Ghost, personally, for the player, like, why would you want to leave a good situation? Why would you want to leave the place that you have revitalized your career in, which is exactly what he's done in Arizona? So I think that with Chychrun moving on, it leaves them with, they wouldn't have a lot on the back end right away if they got rid of Gostisbehere as well. I mean, J.J. Mosier's a great player, and we're going to have to wait a few years for Maverick Lamoureux to get into Arizona, but why wouldn't you keep Ghost? So, anyway, yeah, that's my bold prediction. And
Harp, with your bold prediction, now we're going to have to wait all the way until potentially the summer to pop the bottle of champagne when all three of us are correct.
Yeah, true. I guess mine
really
would probably happen.
us.
Mine would happen first, So maybe we can pop 3 bottles. One when mine happens, one when the Stars win the cup, and then when Ghost resigns.